Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Azizi podcast. My next guest is Cynthia Conte. Cynthia Conte works for Ring TV as their lead on camera reporter and also for the WBC as an ambassador and correspondent that covers all the big fights, breaking news, and soon will be covering different sports. Cynthia Conte also is the hostess of 360 Promotions Hollywood Fight Nights. Enjoy the show, everybody. And we're live. Cynthia Conte, how's it going?
Good. Good morning. I was just saying that it's very different to put makeup on in the morning.
I know.
But,
Was that like a good thing or a bad thing? Were you like exciting to do the makeup, or were you like, no way, I need to do makeup again?
I haven't worn makeup in a while. I'm not wearing like full coverage as I usually would for interviews. I'm not wearing eyelashes, so that really like helped me. But it was just weird. I'm like, oh wait, what do I do first? So, but it just kind of picked up, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go.
Nice.
It was interesting, and it's also Easter, so I don't have anywhere to go. I have nothing to do, so it may as well look nice for Easter.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just, as I told you, I was watching this opera singer, performing, and he was performing in Milan in the cathedral. And while he was performing, they were showing the biggest cities in the world, and it was just so surreal because Milan, New York, Paris, all empty. Like he's like singing this opera song, and the streets are empty. Times Square just like a desert, and it's just like so like it's surreal. Like
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah.
That sounds so beautiful. I mean, I remember when Italy went on their lockdown and, everyone would start singing in their
On the
neighborhoods.
balconies, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say it was Bocelli that started singing from his balcony, and I was just crying. It was so moving. But we can't do that here in LA. People just be like, shut up.
They did that here in Toronto, which is pretty cool, but instead of singing, it was like a DJ, and he was just playing club music.
I'll take that. I'll take that any day.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we just talked about, you raving out on your Instagram. I love following you on Instagram. You always post the cool stuff. You're really actually like leading a vlog, because you're not just taking pictures. You're sharing the world. You're sharing with everyone through your eyes, and you're just narrating what you see. And that's pretty cool too. The funny part was that you were recently, I think you bought a piece of furniture or something like that on Instagram, and you were trying to assemble, I think it was a table or a chair or something like that.
It was my new desk, since I had another desk, but It wasn't feasible. I needed drawers, and this thing, it said 35 minutes, and I'm like, I have never seen that many parts for a desk. And I used to own gyms, so I've actually put gym equipment together with my hands. So when I saw 35 minutes, I'm like, okay, maybe an hour. 4 hours later, no. I was like, there's parts of the screws that I still have. I'm like, I'm not even sure if these are extras. I don't know, but as of right now, it's holding.
Well, first of all, that Instagram story was hilarious, because it just basically did like the step by step of how you're all excited about that, and then you're like, you go through doubt, and then you're trying to like negotiate with this desk, and then you're just drinking wine afterwards. You're just like, in the middle of that.
It was like a bottle of wine later. What else are you gonna do? Because it was just because they said do not use any tools. Use the tools that we gave you.
Yeah, they have those little hooks or whatever.
So I'm like, well, how am I supposed to screw this in? And I go, my fingers were cut. I go, no. I'm getting my screwdriver, and or whatever it is, and I'm hoping it doesn't fall apart. But it seems fitted. I've stripped a lot of the paint off. But who knows? No one can see it except me.
Yeah. I went through this IKEA nightmare just a couple of months ago, because I recently moved to this new apartment, and I had to buy all the new furniture. So I got myself first I got myself a bed, and that was a nightmare because why was it a nightmare? Because I didn't have any lights. So I had to make sure that I finish it during the daytime, because if I don't finish it, I'm gonna sleep at night on the floor.
Oh my God! You didn't have candles?
No, I didn't. I just moved in. No, I just moved in like really quickly. Like, okay, because I just got to this country. It took me around 6 hours to make this bed happen, and it's sort of like I struggled with it, and some of that I just finished by force, without any screwdrivers. I just freaking mashed it in. And
I hope it doesn't break on you.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't break. Well, so far so good. So yeah, and then I got this sofa behind me, and that one was all right as well. But it's kind of fun, but at the same time, it's kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
If you because IKEA is like, you better try it the first time. The second time is just gonna break if
Yeah.
you do something wrong.
Yeah,
But in any
because at
case,
first when I got my desk, I'm like, maybe I should just go to IKEA. And I was like, no. And
uh-huh,
when I was putting this desk together, I'm like, damn, I should have just went to IKEA or just bought a writing desk, no
uh-huh,
drawers. But
uh-huh.
it's well worth it. I mean, it's so pretty. I love my little desk.
Nice. Well, you need to put the finished product on the
I
on your
will.
story as
I
well
will.
for
I
all the
will.
fans who are just
I
like
know.
cannot wait to see it.
um,
Wait, you owned a gym?
yeah, I used to own two gyms. That's how I've always been in the fitness industry, my sister and I, and my what was it 2013, so it was 2012. I owned my first gym with my older sister, and
Uh-huh,
my mom was she was dying of cancer, and so she gave us a gift.
uh-huh.
She's like, I want to give you guys this money
Mm-hmm,
to open a gym before I pass. So we
mm-hmm,
opened it, and it was like a gym, like a 24-hour. It had all the
mm-hmm.
equipment, and it had a boxing ring and a Muay Thai Taekwondo studio. So
Wow.
I made sure there was a boxing ring, and so it was like we had spin classes, yoga, I mean weights, equipment, everything. So
Mm-hmm.
my mom ended up passing away, and I was living in New
Oh, I'm
York
so
at the
sorry.
time. No, thank you. I was living in New York at the time, and to have a business with your sister
Mm-hmm.
or any sibling is very hard. On top of not living in the same state,
Uh-huh.
but and then my mom passed away, so it was difficult. And then we just wrapped it up, and then we were selling off our equipment, and the guy that was selling and buying it,
Mm-hmm.
he heard our story, he knew our backgrounds, and he said, why don't you partner with me? And we're like, I don't know if we could do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And my gym was big. It was like almost 4,000 square feet. It was,
Oh
I
wow.
love, oh man, that was like,
Gigantic.
it was a passion project. Like I
Yeah.
put in hours. Just, I just like looked at 'em, like I washed those floors, the bathrooms, the
Right,
gym
right.
equipment. But then I said, okay, we'll think about it. And then out of the next gym, that's where Oscar Valdez and Abner Martis trained out of. And then
Wow.
after that, yeah, in Santa Fe Springs. After that, we had to close that gym because the
Uh-huh.
city bought us out because they're building more freeways.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, we'll take money. And
Yeah, they
so,
usually give you a good deal. Like,
yeah. And so
yes.
I go, I mean, they took out, it was like there were maybe like 8, 9 stores around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, you have to build this freeway and you have to pay us. And then
Mm-hmm.
after that, I was like, no more gym, no more gyms. It's when you work out in a gym, you expect to do certain things like clean, put
Mm-hmm.
your weights away. And then
Yes.
as an owner, trying to tell people to do it, they look at you like that's something new to them. I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Flush the toilet? But, you know, it wasn't for me.
Yeah, that's so funny. So you've been in sports for a long time.
Yeah, I've been in sports. You know, I did a lot of pageants, so I didn't grow up,
Mm-hmm.
playing. I don't even know how to ride a bike. Like that's just
Oh wow,
that.
that's a cool insight.
Yeah, I tried when I was 16 and I crashed into a car, but that's a whole other story.
All right, now my
But
goal will be to teach you how to ride a bike.
you know what? I'm gonna go buy a bike because I see all these kids. I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. But
It's fun.
it looks fun until you crash or you don't know how to stop. But so yeah, I've always been doing sports. I did pageants also. So when I was playing
So
volleyball,
how did you do, like, explain to me more what pageant is, because I guess for the lack of my English vocabulary, I'm not completely sure what a pageant is. And in my opinion, in my view, is this like a beauty kind of thing, or what is it?
beauty pageant. So I was doing it since I was a kid, like maybe
So
like
you were
5 or 6.
one of those little cute kids in the cute dresses.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
I always had like that gang of pancake makeup on, just smiling, always on. Because I used to be a dancer. I used to do gymnastics. I used to do ballet. I used to
Nice.
play piano and sing, like the whole thing.
Okay.
And so we, I just kept doing it. And I think my last pageant was when I was 26. And
Oh, so you've been doing this
yeah,
for a while, huh?
I would do it here in America and in the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
And my dad and I had this system. I'm a middle child.
Uh-huh.
So my older sister was a singer. She sang here and in the Philippines. She had an album in the Philippines. And for me, I was a
Wow.
pageant girl,
Uh-huh.
but I would sing. That was my talent.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was my stage dad. Everyone had a stage mom. My dad was my stage dad. My mom didn't really, she had my other little sister to take
So
care
what's
of.
a stage dad or stage mom?
Yeah, have you ever seen dance moms? Like,
No.
okay, stage moms so stage mom is, they're all about winning a pageant, making sure you're on, they're just neurotic.
Uh-huh.
You have to win, or you have to do well. That was my dad.
Oh,
But
okay.
he also, yeah.
I thought a stage parent is someone you hire to that looks better than your actual parents, so that on stage. I legit thought that. I just thought like if that. And you're like,
I
my
mean,
dad
that
was,
could be.
and you said my dad was the stage dad. I'm like, well, I guess you're saying that your dad was very attractive.
No. So I mean, that's the way I grew up. Like my dad,
Got it. Okay.
we were always competing. Like we are always in competition. So I didn't have a normal childhood like majority of people.
Uh-huh.
I mean, when I did play sports, my mom and dad were like, Cynthia, if you break your leg or something. But I did it out of I despise I just out of what is that? Despite out of my parents. So
Uh-huh.
I would play softball, volleyball, basketball, name it,
Nice.
track. I mean, I did it all. And
Got
then,
it.
but
So
yeah,
about the pageants though, like I mean, I understand when you're little, your parents make you do it, but I guess in like once you grew older, you got into that yourself. I guess. I mean, you always, I'm assuming, liked it, but
I
like,
loved it.
what's
There was
exactly
something,
like the challenge about it? Because I mean, explain to me.
uh, exactly, it's the challenge. So, I mean, at that time, it was like you had to either say a speech,
Mm-hmm.
you answered questions on the fly. You can only practice so many things. You can practice your walk. You have to always try to be fit.
Mm-hmm.
The typical pageant stuff. But when it comes to using your brain, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's can I curse? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can, sure.
Okay. I always have to ask because I'm a cursor. I was terrified as shit, like every time, but it was always that relief. I did it. Either I answered well or I didn't answer. I answered very well, depending if
Uh-huh.
I won or if I placed or I didn't place at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been in me, like to challenge myself in competition.
Have you ever messed up, like on stage, something went wrong,
Yeah.
like you just felt it tripped or something? I don't know.
No, you know what? I have this memory. I was really young. I was probably 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, it always recurs in my mind. It's crazy you asked me that. They asked me something, oh my God, what is your, shoot, what was the question? And it was something along the lines of what is your favorite something something, and they
Mm-hmm.
answered like a fairy tale way. And in my mind it was like, I wish I was in the woods doing this and this. And then I thought about it after and I started crying to my dad. I'm like, Daddy, I said the wrong answer. My dad said, what happened? And I told him, it was like, Cynthia. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But it was just weird that that haunts me to this day. And I was like, how did I answer that question? But I was young. I mean, you can't really put that much pressure on me. Why would you ask me a question like that? It was so deep.
Wait, but what was it? What exactly was the question? Do you remember it?
Oh, I can't remember, but it was something like, what's your dream something?
Uh-huh.
And the way I took that question
Uh-huh.
was in a different way that you would maybe think the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was fucking young. I was a kid. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just like, I was in a forest and there was a magical fairy, something like that. And the answer should not have been anything like that.
You know, that reminded me when I was in the first grade, my mom gave me to a ballroom dancing school, and that was me and like a bunch of other
Oh.
my class. So I was like a ballroom dancer or whatever. Or
Can you
like,
ballroom still?
I think so. I can pull it off.
Oh,
Uh,
that's very good. It's very sexy if a man can do ballroom.
I know, especially like during some sort of a wedding or some event, all of a sudden I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like showing some moves, you know, everyone's like,
Yeah.
whoa. And you know, like right now I'm totally cool with it. You know, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it, you know, no insecurity whatsoever. Like I'm gonna show them some whatever. But back then it was kind of like, you know, I didn't really want to do it, but I guess but I've been doing it all the time, and because all of my classmates, you know, their moms also gave them to the same school, so we we're all doing that. And then we had like a city competition for
Mm-hmm.
ballroom dancing. And for some reason on that competition, because I'm also competitive by nature, but I thought I got it. Like for those dances, like I got all the moves. Like I thought I'm getting all the scores. Like I got to the final and all of that, and I was just like, and towards the end there was like the final five or something like that, and I was like, I remember being small in fourth grade, and I was praying to God to like, I was like literally like praying, like I gotta do it, I gotta get it, I gotta get this first place, and I got the fourth place.
How did you
And
feel?
I broke down. I was crying so much in front
Oh,
of everybody, in front of all of my class. I just couldn't hold it, this emotion, like this. I just couldn't hold my tears. It was just so emotional for me not to get it. Like I thought I was so confident I will get it, and I just didn't.
I understand that
Uh,
feeling. How old
and
were you again at that time?
so fourth grade, I'd say like 9 years, I think.
Yeah. See, we don't, I mean, you just know that you're supposed to win. Like,
Yeah,
there's no second best, third best, fourth
yeah,
not best, you just know you're supposed to win. You're supposed to have that big trophy. You're
yeah,
supposed to have the flowers.
yeah, and it's just.
We're bringing up some old emotions here. I'm ready to cry about
It's like we're going through therapy right now, just going to those, tapping into those emotions right now.
right?
Uh, but yeah, like going back, no, literally, I just like something just hit me right now. I'm like, I need to like recover.
It's all right. Let it out. I mean,
I need to
this
like
is what we
recover.
needed.
But okay, so going back to your like after, okay, so you've been doing this until you were 26, and then I'm guessing after that you doing the gym business and pageant at the same time, or you did the gym after you did it?
Yeah, I did the gym business after, and
Uh
so
huh.
I was always working in a gym though.
Uh huh.
So I was a Group X instructor. I was a trainer. I mean, I've always been in fitness in some sort of capacity because, I mean, it sounds so bad. Like I was much chunkier when I was younger, and people don't believe me. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't fat.
Mhm.
And I don't know what people's definition, but for mine, it wasn't the right, for me, because I was always doing pageants.
Mhm.
And so I saw it and I was like, at 13 years old, it's not very healthy to always be in a gym. Like I've
Mhm.
done every kind of diet, the cabbage diet, the beet
Mhm.
diet. Like, I mean, but that's not normal. So kids,
Mhm.
don't do that, do it
Yeah,
the right
especially
way.
if you're 13.
Yeah. And so it was just, I didn't starve myself. I wasn't any of that, but it was just
Mhm.
constantly like, I didn't look like the typical girl. And
Mhm.
then from then on, I've always learned how to do it the right way, and just gradually, I mean, if I don't work out, something's wrong. That's why I'm
Mhm.
very active all the time.
Mhm.
So even being in a quarantine is very different. It's
Mhm.
especially like you couldn't go to the gyms. I'm like, okay, I have a lot of equipment like bands, weights, my ankle
Mhm.
weights, name it, I have it.
Mhm.
But not to be able to go running outside or on a track or on a treadmill is different. It's like I feel like something's missing in my life. But I have a heavy bag, so at least I have that.
Nice. But
Yeah.
do you feel like as a young as a little girl, do you think it was maybe too much pressure on you? Like, do you think like maybe it's like unhealthy for kids to go through that sort of competitive uh stage of life? But I know like a lot of other, people say like no, it was actually really useful because
Absolutely, yeah.
it taught them a lot about
Mhm.
life. What's your
Yeah,
opinion?
for me, I didn't know anything else because I saw my dad. I saw my older sister. Like she didn't have a, a teenage, typical teenage years. She was singing. She was
Mhm.
making albums. She was touring. She was in the Philippines. Like so, to me, that's normal.
Mhm.
So for me, just if I saw someone, playing out in the playground, I'm like, why aren't they doing anything? And I'm like, and it's always been set in my head, like they have to have goals. And my parents have always pushed me to just be better than myself, always just create something. And and now that's why the discipline always comes in. It's just kind of like, okay, just get your hustle on because you don't know what's going to happen. And
Mhm.
for the people that don't know what to do when they're just, they don't know anything else, then I can see they might struggle. And but it's just the way that people look at it when they're growing up, and for me it's completely normal. And
Mhm.
I always said whenever I have kids, I go, oh, I'm going to act like my mom and dad. Like they have no choice. They're going to take ballet, dancing, they're going to box, they're going to play golf, they're going to have to learn several languages because that's what was instilled in me. I mean,
That's
I'm
great.
not going to say I turned out amazing, but I think I'm doing all
You
right.
turned out really well.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and when we're
yeah,
gonna talk about how you turned out and what are you doing right now and all of your achievements, because I feel
thank
like
you.
I don't know, I'm very impressed by everything that you do. And the more I'm in the boxing, and the more I'm in now podcasting and doing all this technical stuff. As I texted you yesterday, like I really appreciate your craft right now because
No,
I
thank you. I
understand how
appreciate
hard
it.
it is right now. Okay, so what happened afterwards? Once you said you sold your gym to the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I moved back from New York. I moved there for a boyfriend at the time, and I moved
Hmm.
back because of that ex-boyfriend. And I
Hmm.
sat here. I'm like, oh God, I went to college and everything. I graduated radio, TV, film, communications. So I have my bachelor's.
So that was always something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, I've always known that I wanted to be in front of a camera in some sort of way,
Hmm.
and I always wanted to be a weather girl.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. I mean, in LA, there is no weather. So I would I would watch Channel 11, my favorite Jillian Barberie at the time, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I want to be her. Like, that's the girl I want to be. She was cute, she was fun, and
Uh-huh.
she'd be like, it's sunny, you know,
It's
because we didn't
now
have
write me a
weather.
check.
Yeah. And I always knew that I'm like, I just wanted to do maybe news, but something fun,
Right.
entertainment reporting. And I got the chance. I went back to school. Like I went after school. I ended up doing real estate. My dad owned. He was a broker, so I ended up doing that. And then, yeah, the market decided to commit suicide. I think it was
2007,
2012.
2008.
I don't wait. Let's see. I'm going to age. So I'm 40. So I when did I graduate college? To 97, 98, 9, 2001, 2. Yeah, around that 2000, 2000, yeah, around there.
Hmm.
So I bought a house in Vegas, and I was selling property here in California and Las
Oh
Vegas.
wow.
And I was doing well. My dad, I made my own percentage, my commission, because I'm like,
Uh-huh.
Dad, I
Uh-huh.
have this thing with my dad. We would barter. So if I want to do a pageant or my dad wanted me to do a pageant, I'm like, Daddy, then I want this. So
Nice.
I was able to barter with him. I was very smart.
You
Then it
got a house
decided
in Vegas.
I used
What?
to. No, 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 no. But this is what happened. It When the market took a dive,
Uh-huh.
I had to sell my house, obviously, but I was able to sell it for what I bought. So I
Oh,
broke you.
nice. Okay.
And a lot of people I know, they all had to move out of LA because
Hmm.
the LA rents got so expensive for what they were paying for in Vegas. So
Got it.
it was just a bad situation for everyone. I mean, people were squatting, it's sad.
Hmm.
And I feel
Hmm.
like that's what's going to happen right now today or this year.
Yeah, I just had a podcast with a real estate agent and we talked extensively about, the market around, around
Hmm.
the world and in America and in Canada. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Right now, no one's actually like panicking that everything's going to tank, but no one really knows what's going to happen.
Oh, it's going
So
to tank.
you think so?
We're in recession already.
But what about the real estate? Do you think real estate's going to tank?
Real estate is going, yeah. So it's the time to buy. I mean, I hate to say it, for people who are sitting on cash or
Yeah.
cash king,
Yeah.
this is the time you buy your properties. You're not going to make a quick investment like immediately. You're going to have to wait for
Right.
for it to come back. And for the people who have loans on their homes, your interest rate is going to go.
Hmm. Are you
Yeah,
gonna get a property for yourself?
yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm looking at stuff, but I'm trying to sell off my stocks right now. Like I'm like, shit, I gotta
Oh,
sell these off. Yeah.
how do you manage your portfolio? Do you have like a do you like you say you got to sell your stocks, but do you do it yourself? Like do you actually?
Well, I'm just gonna look and be like, okay, I don't have that much left in it, so I just tell. I think it's TD. I don't remember whoever I bought it from. I just every time I see it's up, and if
Uh-huh.
I'm like, ooh, let me cash some of that out, but now
Nice.
it's not good, so I'll just cash out whatever's left in there and then just be done
That's
with
so
it.
cool. So you do it yourself. So you just you don't have a broker, you don't have like a company that you just manages.
No, it's TD America Trade or whatever it's called,
Right.
Ameritrade.
But you do all
So
the shots. You do the calls. Like
yeah, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, I bought this stock years ago.
uh-huh.
And someone said you should buy this because I was looking into Disney stock. I'm like, it's still too expensive. Like I can't afford it. I can't
Uh-huh.
just buy like 10 stocks. Like you have to
Right.
buy hundreds of shares. So
Hmm.
I bought some in this other one. It's a tech company
Hmm.
and it did really well 1 year. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, let me take some of that money out now because I don't know, whenever it goes up, something comes down. So
Yeah.
I took yeah, some money out. But
That's
but
pretty cool.
this time I'm like, I think it's time to just take it out and just be safe.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's crazy. I mean, we're seeing market goes back up right now, but I don't know for how long. Maybe it's just, you know how they say, like, there's like a notion about stock market where they say when, like, and it's kind of a cruel thing to say. So basically, when the stock market is tanking, but
Mhm.
then it kind of bounces a little bit up, and then it just goes down again, but then it tries to bounce back again. They call it a dead cat that was hit by a bus, and it just bounced.
I didn't even know
And
that.
so it just bounces on
Wow.
the asphalt, like up and down, up and down.
I mean, yeah, I've been seeing it. I think it was, I don't know what it was, what it closed out on Friday. I mean, by no means, I don't know really shit about stocks, but I just look at mine and I'm like, it's in the red or the green. And I'm like, so I don't know if it, I don't know. When I saw red, I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, my mutual funds, but
Yeah,
nothing is safe right now. Like
nothing is safe. Nothing.
nothing is
Yeah,
safe.
no, and no one knows. I'm trying to log into like any sort of like my friends or conversations or the like circles that I'm in, like the groups, the stock market, the real estate, and the common sentiment is like, well, cash is king, and we don't know what's going on.
It is. I know a lot of people trying to pull out all their money and the banks are stopping them.
Hmm.
And they're like, why can't I pull out my own money
Hmm.
because of what's going on? And it's a panic, God forbid something happens
Hmm.
and everything shuts down. People don't realize when you deposit money, your money doesn't sit in a bank. People think
Yeah.
that for some reason. I'm like, it's electronic,
Right, right. And they
So
reinvested, they put it in action, the banks themselves and then all of that. You know, when the whole quarantine started, the first thing I've done is I went to the ATM and I withdrew like $1,000. And
oh yeah.
I wanted to have that in cash in my wallet
Yeah,
just in
just in
case.
case.
In case like
Yeah.
shit really hits the fan and like we're gonna all like survive for our lives and fight and all of that. I don't know.
Right.
In my mind, there's like a weird post-apocalyptic, like you got to run through some sort of a fence and you need to pay someone off. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I gotta have
I
that
believe the
cash.
same thing, hon. I mean, I watch way too many movies, but you know what? They base those movies off of something.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
exactly.
saying. Just saying. Yeah.
Man, that's ridiculous. But hopefully
Yeah.
everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. So going back to after real estate, I ended up I became a health coach in New York, and
Uh-huh.
then because I was like, well, what can I do? I was in the fitness industry, and
Okay,
I've
so the
always
real
wanted
estate
to
tanked
learn.
and you went back to New York.
No, well, so real estate, I know that was before I moved to New York. Real estate tanked, and then I went to school. I went back to school
Uh-huh.
just for like a class at Santa Monica College,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to take because I wanted to get an internship because I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get a job in
Mm-hmm.
any TV station, and I'm like, internship is probably the easiest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a broadcasting class, and I remember Christina Pancho was in my class,
Oh,
and that's
cool.
how, yeah. And so it's amazing to see her,
So funny that you're
yeah,
classmates.
yeah, yeah. It was just like she was working and I was working. I was a bottle service girl, I was a bartender. Just making ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the class. It was at like a 3-hour class every Tuesday or something. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Now I can get my internship.
Mm-hmm.
Sure did, Channel 5, and then end up after a year, I became really good friends with my boss. Now he's my mentor. He
Mm-hmm.
hired me, and you're supposed to be a PA at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I ended
Production
up getting,
assistant.
yeah, a production assistant. I ended up getting hired as a AP, an associate producer. So I
Oh,
completely
wow.
skipped a whole job.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was doing. And the girl, my friend Roxanne, who I took her position, she ended up becoming a producer. And now she's one of the big bosses at Channel 5. She's one of the executive producers who runs the
Uh-huh.
show. She's like this little 4'11" woman, big mouth, but she's great.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I don't know how to.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really fake it till I made it. And I mean, he really taught me. A lot of people were teaching me throughout the way. Then I ended up becoming a segment producer also. And then my boss, Scott Warren, he's like, so you want to be on TV? I'm like, yeah. Like when I did my interview. And he's like, I have this thing I created, Drive 5. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, well, we're going to put you in a truck. And wherever you're at, you're going to have a camera mounted on the truck. You're going to have a driver. And wherever you're at, we're going to go live to you and say, where are you at, Sin? And if I'm stuck on, I don't know, the 101, how do you find a way to get out of that traffic?
Oh, so it's
And
like a traffic report kind of thing,
yes. And I was
but
like,
with a cool angle. That's awesome.
it was different. It was different, but it was, I remember a couple times he would go live and they're like, okay, Cynthia, where are you at right now? And I'm like, I'm stuck on Laurel Canyon. And I don't know if you've been in the valley, Laurel Canyon. I mean, there's
Yeah, I
only
think so.
one way down and one way up,
Yes.
and either you fall off a cliff. That's the only way. And
Yes.
so and
Yes. I
I'm
remember
stuck in
those.
traffic. I'm sitting there like, well, I'm kind of stuck. There's nowhere to go, you know. And even the 405, I go, well, maybe you could take this. And so,
Uh-huh.
when you're in LA, you learn every freeway and every route. Everyone apparently knows the same routes as you do.
Yeah, I remember I got a job in Los Angeles, but I lived in Ventura at that time,
Okay.
and it was in West Los Angeles. So, well, I was still on sort of on probation. I was like a temp.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're like, okay, well, we're probably gonna hire you, but we're moving our office from Oxnard to Los Angeles. So I was like, it's okay, like as long as you're gonna hire me. So I had to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and drive from Ventura to Los Angeles.
Wow,
It took
that's
me
far.
in the 401, like 101 and then 405, and then all this traffic. It took me 2.5 hours to go to
Yeah.
the office, and then from the office to go home, it took me, I think, 1.5 to 2 hours, just so that I can get that job. And I got it, so thank God. But I do not miss that traffic. That's for
No,
sure.
and it's worse. I mean, it's just the 405, they've always been building it. Every time when I lived out in Santa Monica and all that, I would always see like they're still building it. And I
Yeah,
mean, I grew up here in Los Angeles, so all those freeways, I'm like, they're still building it since I was a kid. I go, when is this shit ever done?
I feel
It's
like they're
never
just
done.
they're just maintaining, like fixing it. Because I was thinking, like, why don't you just freaking come up with some, do like 1,000 lanes or something? And I think they're just
A
not doing this.
thousand lanes. They were going to do a double bridge, but that wasn't feasible. And especially all the traffic going in and out. That's a
Yeah.
main freeway. I mean, they always say the 405 is parking lot, which is true. It's true. It is true.
I feel like they're just not building anything because they're afraid they're gonna start this $1 trillion. They're gonna pass this $1 trillion infrastructure budget, but then Elon Musk will come in and say, like, you know what, screw the highways, we're gonna go underground. And everyone's like,
Underground.
that's a great idea. And I was like, well, we already
Hmm.
passed this budget, so So I think that's what everyone's waiting for, some sort of a, like, either automated vehicles or less vehicles, or Elon Musk will save the day.
I mean, automated vehicles, as in no drivers driving your car.
Yeah.
I do not like that at all.
Yeah, but then you think you're at the party, you're drunk, you're just like, you really want.
Uber, a cab.
That's true. That's
What
true.
if there's a malfunction? I mean, God bless Tesla, but there's a lot of issues with those, cars. They
Yeah. Yeah.
blow up in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're great, but people have gotten locked in their cars. Like,
Hmm.
no, I'd rather
Yeah.
just drive.
Yeah. So, but I do miss Los Angeles, and I don't know what it is, because, like, it's a weird city. It's first of all, these highways, and then there's the city itself. I remember my first time I went to Los Angeles. I came from Kazakhstan. I lived in Santa Barbara, and I took a trip to Los Angeles for the first time, and I was so excited to see Los Angeles, and I was like, oh my God, I'm about to see Los Angeles. And
Hmm.
it ended up being just like, oh well, this looks kind of dirty. Like, nothing's really happening.
That's what everyone says.
What's happening? Like, and then I went to Hollywood, and I was like, whoa,
I
like
was
this.
just gonna say Hollywood.
And I was like, okay, like, and so my first impression was like, oh, okay, whatever. But then when I moved there, and just the weird vibe of Los Angeles, that's what I miss. Just that, I don't know, the party attitude or something. Something about it is really
It's,
magnetic.
I mean, yeah. I think it's when a lot of transplants come. It's the stars in their eyes. It's like Hollywood and what you see on movies and shows,
Hmm.
like the show Entourage. Like,
I watched Entourage.
okay, so is that what you thought LA was? Did you think that girls always rollerbladed in their bikinis like
uh,
Venice? That's what a lot of people have that impression of what Los Angeles is.
I
No.
think, well, I watched Entourage while I was already in Ventura, so I was like already like in grad school. So I went to Los Angeles several times when I started watching that show. So I was like, I understood like some things were over exaggerated, but I think what really brought me and like inspiration about Los Angeles was a show, Californication, on Showtime.
Uh-huh.
And she was
I love how you that particular show. David Duchovny.
David Duchovny and
Isn't
all
he
of
a
his.
sex addict in that show?
Exactly. And 17-year-old me was like all inspired, to go.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's what you thought. Okay. That's a new one to me. Okay. Look at you. You're like in thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
So
just thinking
that's
about it recently. But yeah,
I'm gonna have to watch that show. I haven't seen that in years.
I know.
In years. It'll make you think of California again.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to be in Los Angeles on the 28th for Tom Loeffler's followed Fight Nights.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh
unfortunately that didn't
yeah.
happen. I still need to get reimbursed for my ticket. I need like to call insurance or whatever because I couldn't
Oh
get a hold of Expedia for like a month. And yeah, I finally got to them and they gave me a voucher to go back. And I'm like, I don't need any voucher. I need a cash. Where's my cash?
yeah.
And luckily, I insured that flight, so they said, like, just call insurance and you're gonna get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's good. That's why I always say, you know what? Now I just start buying insurance because a voucher means nothing to me. Like
hmm
I after this, I don't know if I want to travel anywhere. Not I sure as hell am not gonna take a cruise any time ever. But a plane, it's inevitable that I'm gonna have to travel. But
yeah.
you need cash right now because you don't
hmm
even know when you can travel.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
first thing I've done when this whole thing's like, oh, like this is serious, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go through my bank statement. What am I paying for that I don't need to pay for? So I like canceled a bunch of subscriptions. I called my
mm,
utility company, like different ones. Got like little $5 discounts on a couple of those, and
yeah.
just like, okay, it's time to get serious. So
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's devastating to what's happening in the world right now. I mean, it's so unfortunate. Just like the bills are stacking up for people, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like
hmm
what can I pay for? And
hmm
just I'm like, look, they always say that you save money from staying home, but I'm like, I keep buying shit on Amazon because I have to now create an office. Like I need
right.
things. So I'm like, okay, well, that could have been gas. That could have been food. And luckily, I don't really eat out anymore. I cook a lot
hmm
because I'm too
Oh,
scared to eat out. I mean, I've always cooked a lot, but I'm cooking even more
are
because
you
of
are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, actually, I'm good. I'm good.
What's your signature dish?
Well, I'm a grill goddess. Like I'm a grill queen, so I can grill really well.
I like the goddess more
And
clean, grilled goddess. That sounds like,
grill goddess.
yeah, sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a Twitter
I had it
handle.
on. I remember I said "girl on grill," and people are like, "What? You're a girl on grill?" I'm like, and you don't hear it. I'm like, okay, maybe not.
Grill on grill action.
So yeah, I mean, I love grilling. I love grilling, and there is one dish that I do make a lot. I haven't made in years. It was my mom's famous egg rolls. Like,
Oh, I love egg
yeah,
rolls.
and they're not like the Shanghai, like the bigger ones.
Uh-huh.
They're like these mini egg rolls, and my mom
The
taught me
little
her.
cute ones.
Yeah, and my mom taught me her secret. I'm the only one in the family that knows, and so my mom
Ah,
used to make them, and she was never a caterer. Like she just made them,
uh-huh.
and people were like, "Can you make them for my party?" And they would pay my mom. She's like, "Okay, whatever," and she would make
Yeah.
me do it, and I was just like, "Damn it!" But I'm so happy I did because I'm the only one that knows. And to this day, like before the year my mom 2013, we rolled egg rolls. I still have those egg rolls that I rolled with my mom. That was the last
Oh.
time. Yeah, and I'm like, I can't cook them because they're old, but I go, I
Mm-hmm.
can't throw them away because it's so
Mm-hmm.
sentimental to me.
Yeah.
And so, but I keep looking at them like, I want to make some egg rolls, but it's time consuming and they're so good.
Yeah.
Only special people get it, but
Ah, I'm so hungry now.
I know, right?
Do you keep any diets right now? Like what's how do you or you just, how do you usually do you have like a strict diet?
No, I mean, I used to have a strict diet, but it's just it's even harder now that you're in quarantine
Right.
because you just I normally would just cook ground turkey and just vegetables, but at
Mm-hmm.
times, and I don't really eat a lot of rice, like especially being Filipino and
Mm-hmm.
Italian. I'm just like, no, I can't. Like, I'll get fat.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been in my head that I can't eat rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll eat 80% clean, 20% bad, and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I love to snack. I love
Mm-hmm.
chips. I
Mm-hmm.
love candy. Well, chocolate, and I love my alcohol. I love wine. Like I love wine, and but there's
Yeah, who
just
doesn't
times,
love wine? Some good wine, at the end of the day, that's like a given. It's a must.
or in quarantine, like the beginning of
At
the
the
day.
at the beginning of the day.
The
I
first
don't-
2 weeks we're in
yeah,
quarantine.
you do
It's so
not
bad.
remember.
I know I do actually because I remember. So I was supposed to go to China for
Uh-huh.
the top rank.
Oh, that's yeah, I think you told
So
that on your podcast. You mentioned that, yeah.
I was already in panic mode when I canceled that flight, and I'm like, this thing, all of China is red. And I remember the airlines was like, well, you're not flying into the epicenter. I'm like, huh? I go, that. I'm like, wait a minute, have you not seen China? They're like, well, no, no. So they wouldn't refund me. So I
Uh-huh.
had my insurance company on the other phone, like my house phone.
Mm-hmm.
And the other lady from the airlines was just saying, a specific like script.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. So I finally put them both on intercom because I go, I don't know what to say. So they're both like talking and they're technically screaming at each other. I'm like, and I remember I was having anxiety and panic attacks. I'm like, I can't go to this fight for
Uh-huh.
WBC. Like it's
Right.
9 a.m. in the morning. I started drinking because it's like the death toll just kept rising. And
Mm-hmm.
then Italy started getting it. I was like, there is no way I'm going to China. Like, and so
Mm-hmm.
finally when I was able to get all said and done, they're like, it's gonna take um 5 to 6 weeks minimum
Mm-hmm.
for the refund. I still haven't gotten it yet from the insurance because everyone
Yeah.
they were getting refunds. They were still dealing with the hurricanes
Mm-hmm.
from the East Coast.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like they're so backed up. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, and I go, I'm done. Nancy Rodriguez from WBC, she had to
Mm-hmm.
go be a judge. We're gonna go together. I'm like,
I listened to her
Nancy,
podcast with you. That was a
oh,
cool
that
one.
was fun.
That was
That was
that
her
was
first one.
yeah, and it was so like it was very meta. So like you could hear like that she's like learning on the way and like the new experience, and it was just kind of cute. Like I liked it. It was cool. And then
Yeah,
and then you dived into like some boxing themes and women's boxing. It was pretty cool. I like your
yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
Thank you. Her top 10 things, top 10 rounds with Nancy Rodriguez.
10
Yeah,
rounds.
that's
Yeah.
what it is. 10
Yeah.
rounds.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun. But yeah, so I already went through that panic, and so I remember coming back from Texas
Mm-hmm.
after the Garcia. Oh my God, I keep forgetting his name? The one Mikey Garcia he
Denny?
fought.
Oh,
Um, oh, it's gonna come back to my head.
it's all right. It's not a
It's
boxing
all right.
podcast.
Yeah, he. So I remember I was at Target. No, Costco, and I just finished voting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go. It's like 1 p.m. I'm like, where's all the water? They're like, it's sold out. I'm like, what do you mean sold out? They're like, it's sold out in like 30 minutes. I'm like, what? And I'm like, and I already knew about this virus. I didn't know it was this bad already. And so I'm thinking, I came to Costco for water. And I'm thinking, this is weird. So I just started seeing people's carts like full of like cup of noodles,
Survival
like
stuff.
survival stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of like getting nervous. So I started buying stuff I normally would never eat, but it's canned food, frozen foods, just in case. And then I bought like 20 bottles of wine. I was like, you know, and I'm thinking it's not going to be this long. I'm thinking, holy shit. And, for the very beginning of the quarantine, everyone's like, well, we don't know what we're going to do. So everyone was just drinking.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, party, drink, go to sleep, wake up, and then it just gets really depressing. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go through those 5 stages of depression, and now we've already kind of accepted what's happening. So
Mm-hmm.
I've completely laid off. Well, not completely. I'm sorry. I have laid off the like well, no, the morning drinking,
Mm-hmm.
and then I start like midday, and then because I'm working, so
Mm-hmm.
and then at night.
Yeah, well, it's
20
fun.
bottles.
It's fun. My neighbors are actually doing the same thing right now. I can hear them partying all the time, and I opened a bottle yesterday. Just decided to have some wine. I usually drink tequila, and but the thing is,
Ooh, that's the devil. Ooh, that's the devil for me.
yeah, like how to say, everyone has a crazy story with tequila, but for me, it's just like it was that kind of drink that I liked, and it's dietary. It's pretty good. It's like low in sugar, and it also gives you that strong
The buzz.
buzz. Yeah, and so I don't do shots. I just do tequila and rocks, and I drink Don Julio Blanco. So I just sip it,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
just order it in the bar, and just it's for me it's good. But what they do, like in Canada, you cannot buy tequila in Costco or whatever, like any store.
No tequila. Really?
No alcohol whatsoever. They have government. The government owns all the stores that sell alcohol. So you have to go to like a different
A
store,
liquor store.
a specific liquor store owned by the government to get your
Yeah.
product, basically. And so it's never comfortable because like
You have to go to several stores.
yeah, you have to like do several runs, and I'm just too lazy for that. So I think I'm out of my how do you say storage, like out of stock right now on all of mine. So
No, you have to make a run. You have to. It's an
I guess.
essential. It really is.
It's in
I
a
mean,
sense that's true.
it
That's why
is.
they still keep this open. Imagine if they closed all they call it LCBO, the
They
store, right?
would. That would be awful. I mean,
Yeah.
it, I don't know. I mean, they have medical marijuana. They
Hmm.
have those essentials. So I'm like, if you're going to keep that open, you need to keep the alcohol open. Luckily
Hmm.
for us in California, we have it all in one. But on the East Coast, they have stores like that. You have to go to a different store. I'm like, that's
Hmm.
weird. It's just too
I know.
much.
I freaked out about this whole alcohol thing when I first learned about it. But and till this day, I actually never went to one. I always have friends buying me stuff. I'm like, oh, you coming over to my place? Can you like go to the LCBO and buy something? So I still actually haven't accepted this whole deal, but at some point I will do it.
There you go.
So let's go back to your path.
I know.
Where?
Sorry. We keep going. Well, that is
I know.
technically.
Well,
Well,
that's
yeah.
that's
So,
that's
so
what I
I
like. So
so
you
that,
okay?
that's
We
what I
stopped
ended up
on the
doing.
yeah
I was
on the
doing
traffic. Yeah.
traffic, and then I remember there was a big fire in Santa Clarita,
Hmm.
and my boss is like, "Okay, you're gonna go up there, and
Hmm.
you're gonna report what you see." And
Hmm.
I'm not even kidding. It was like completely burned. Everything
Hmm.
was burned, and
Hmm.
I was like, "Whoa." I'm in my like yellow, like a KTLA yellow hoodie, like
Hmm.
the like almost like rain gear, but it was emergency wear.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting here. I was telling my photographer, my driver, I was like, "There's nothing," and I report what you see. I go, "It looks like Mars. This, if I were to see what Mars was look like, it was black,
Uh-huh.
black, and just not a house in sight, and it was freaky." And I was like, "This is so strange." And I remember I was like, "I have to go pee." I'm like, "There's nowhere to go pee." So he's like, I go, "Just drop me off in the back, just drive far up," and I just popped a squat right in the middle. There was no firefighter, nothing. But I'm like, it was. I had to pee. I drank a lot of water, and so I'm sitting here, and I was just kind of looking around. I'm like, "This is so crazy that a fire did that." And so I did some traffic there, and then I did some weather hits,
Uh-huh.
and then that was it. And then I ended up leaving KTLA, and then the I just didn't know what I was gonna do, and I was just kind of like, and that's when actually I moved to New York. So I did KTLA
Oh, I
here.
see.
Then
Okay.
I came back, and I was like, I need a job. I don't know what
Hmm.
to do. And
Hmm.
my sister was a strength and conditioning coach for Zach
Hmm.
Hobanesian. So she did, and it was very rare for women to be um, in the corners.
Hmm.
So she worked with him, and she was like, "Sin, why don't you just come to a Golden Boy fight at Belasco?"
Hmm.
And I was just like, no, like I was in like a depressed mode, I was going through a really bad, like a terrible breakup.
Hmm.
And I just didn't want to be around anyone. And so I finally went, and she's like, "Just meet this guy, Dominic Berdine. He does all the interviews for Ring."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Okay, fine." And I went, and I was like, "Oh, boxing. I'd just like to see a live show again." I'm like, "Oh." And I met Dominic, and he's like, "Come shadow me." So we went in the back for post fight interviews.
Hmm.
And then he's like, "Okay, go ahead and ask questions." I'm like, "Huh?" Like, I'm supposed to shadow, not work. And
Right.
I was just thrown into the lion's den, and I just did it. And it was cool. It was interesting because you know it wasn't like ESPN. It wasn't like you're with a camera and you're with the phone. It was
Hmm.
very the new media.
Right.
So then after that, it was I went to the what was that the Chavez Jr. Canelo Chavez Jr. Their fan. It was a fan thing and somewhere like off the freeway. I mean, it was incredible to see. And I was just standing there. I'm like, okay, so this is what scrum is like. And I remember I did get to ask Senior Chavez Senior a question um, about there was a bet that Canelo and Chavez Jr. had for every pound it was $1 million or some crazy bet, 100,000 or $1 million
Was it a bet or
pound.
a contractual stipulation?
It was a bet on the side because we
Okay.
always knew that Chavez is never going to come in on weight.
This guy.
And so, and I remember I asked him that question, and he stopped for me. And when he, he doesn't speak English really.
Hmm.
So when they said it, he's like, "No, I didn't hear about that." He's like, "I better get to the bottom of that." So that was like technically my very first interview, but it wasn't really. It was
That's
just
so
something I
funny.
asked.
Because I mean, I got into boxing relatively recently, and I remember that fight. It was just like what 2016, 17, I think
Hmm.
that fight.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, it's so
yeah.
cool to know that you sort of got into that at approximately the
At
same
that
time.
time, yeah.
Wow. Well, because it seems like you've been there for a while, and again, because of your professionalism.
Oh,
That was
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about it. But basically, when I see you, and I saw you working very very closely, with different boxers and taking interviews and all of that, and then afterwards being in the ring, talking with the crowd for Hollywood Fight Nights,
Hmm.
people think it's easy,
Oh
but
my
it's
God, it's
but it's
not. It's
not. You have
hard.
to be on temp, and you have to, and what you possess is the voice. Your voice is just perfect for these kind of things. It's just
Thank
for the
you.
show, for the TV, for interviews. uh, I don't know, I just want more people to know that it's so hard,
It's a
and you're
lot
doing.
of work.
Yeah,
It's a lot
and
of preparation.
yeah, I bet. So tell me more, like, so once you after the Canelo Chavez fight and you got more and more into it, what was your big breakthrough where you thought, like, okay, this is it, this is what I'm doing now?
So Dominic Verdine had to go to New York and for the Thurman Garcia fight, Danny Garcia. So
Hmm.
he's like, "Can you cover me for Gennady versus Jacob?" And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Okay,
Hmm.
sure." So I met my photog, who is now my cameraman still, Danny, and he's like, "Okay, so I'm thinking, I'm just doing it the way I normally would do it as news, like you do walk and talk and intro."
Hmm.
And my very first interview was Daniel Jacobs. And so
Right.
I was in the ring, and I remember Bernie Barmasal, I'm holding the ring mic. Like, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I'm just standing here, like, holding my mic like this. And so
Hmm.
Bernie was like, "You with ring?" I'm like, "Yeah." I have no clue. He's like, "Come on into the ring,
Hmm.
inside the ring to do an interview," because everyone was on the outside of the ring, of the
Hmm.
ropes.
Hmm.
So it was just a couple of us. And then so Danny came through, and then Abel came, and then interviewing Gennady. And I'm like, so starstruck by Gennady. I'm like, I watch you all the time, and I'm like, I'm actually interviewing. And this is so weird. This is the top I wore for for that interview. I
There
didn't
you
even think
go.
about it.
There you
I
go.
love, because I'm like, I love Argyle and it's Easter, so I just, wow, interesting.
Hmm.
And so I'm sitting there like, just, I can't believe this. And then
Trust
and
me,
it was,
I know that feeling.
I know you do. So, and then I ended up going to my first fight. I covered my very first fight in New York. I got credentialed Bernie. I emailed Bernie, and I was like, "Look,
Hmm.
I know you guys are out of credentials, blah blah blah." And he credentialed me, and that was my first fight. And I've been hitting the ground sprinting the entire time.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Is it hard? Because for me, like, I feel like it's so difficult to just, because you don't it's not like you have to, like, ask questions and just be like a robot. You always have to be in the mood. You have to be in that kind of, in the zone. And when I in the zone, oh, did you, yeah, the zone, hey. But yeah, so I'm watching you, and you always have this passion. You always have this, you command this respect, right? You
Because
have
I
this.
love what I do.
You
I
think it's.
love what I do. I don't call it work. I mean, I love like researching them. I love watching their fights, and I
Mhm.
always have to read them. So when they're not in the mood to talk,
Right.
I mean, I have to like kind of walk on eggshells, but I'm like, I'm going to ask you the question. And if you don't like it, then,
Hmm.
like that thing with Gennady when I interviewed him on my channel, I was
Hmm.
like, some people say you're acting like an asshole. People thought I was calling him an asshole. Like, first of all, no, it was
Hmm.
what people were saying, that he's acting like an asshole.
I like that question.
And it was a fair question, and he
Yeah.
answered it, and he laughed. He was like, "I like that."
Yeah.
So it's just, those are the questions that I push. I try not to ask the same exact questions like everyone else, because
Yeah.
they get bored.
Yeah.
Lomachenko hates it. It's like everyone, like 10 people down the line. So what do you plan on doing in the ring? Like, you would get bored too.
You
So
know,
you
I
have to
I
be very
think,
creative.
right, and I feel like they hate it also because English is not their first language. So for them, it's just
Yeah,
the same plain, like, formula of the question, right? So they
yeah,
only see this as, like, okay, this is the question. Now I have to answer it, and for them, it's always the same.
yeah.
That's they're twice as annoyed, versus like the native speakers, for example.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I remember because I would always interview Gennady in English, and he would respond. But I understand that when you want to say something and your English is not your first language, it doesn't come out the way it should. Like, you're
Hmm.
you're using different words, so it's not very authentic. So
Hmm.
when I had to interview Gennady, when at the gym, I was completely prepared. Like,
Hmm.
Steve Kim and I were prepared to interview him, and about the whole Canelo, for the he got busted for
Hmm.
pets.
Hmm.
They're like, you have to interview him in, is it Russian? Is it, or what's the language? Is it
Russian.
Kaza? Russian.
Russian.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, Oh. So the problem is that you can ask the question. I don't know if the lady's saying the right question. Like she
Mm-hmm.
could tweak it, and which he's responding, it might not be the same exact thing. So the
Mm-hmm.
follow up for me is very hard. So I'm sitting there like, oh, this is gonna be hard. Like Steve Kim and I were like, oh, this is very tough. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
like at the people who understand Russian, they'll fully understand what he's saying. It's more passionate. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and that's why Lomachenko even started doing that again.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect it, but at least they learned English. Like some
Mm-hmm.
people, they don't really care to learn English, and I go, it's easier, but at least you have both dialects. And I'm trying to learn
Right.
Russian. It's just hard. I'm sorry. Oh my, I just know Nostrovia. That's
Well,
it.
you should download Duolingo. It's really helpful. Duolingo.
Duolingo.
It's an app. Like I'm learning French right now with that app.
Wow. Oh
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's
Toronto.
super
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Check it out. And so let's talk about native speakers though, like the ones that actually speak English, and you can actually formulate like a very like 100% back and forwards interview. Do you have any sort of strategy to get some great sound bites out of them, some great answers, so that they're not bored but at the same time engaged?
Well, they always try to find people. Everyone tries to find something that's clickbait,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, when I listen to what other people say, or if they're during a press conference, I always go based off what they said, because everything I prepared, I don't prepare questions. That's always the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I don't do. I mean, I overly prepare of
Mm-hmm.
their whole background. I write bullet points of what I would like to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and majority of times I will never get to all of it, because
Mm-hmm.
they'll say something, or they'll post something on social media,
Mm-hmm.
or writer, something, there's something happens, so I have to now gravitate towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I hear them answer in a different interview, I'll say, oh, I heard you responded blah blah blah, so can you explain why did you say that, something
Mm-hmm.
like that, a follow-up to someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So it really varies, and I'm always paying attention, I'm always aware. I mean, I'm on my phone, like always Instagramming just of where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm always reading. I always have a notebook in hand, I always have my pen, always. So I'm reading, but I'm also listening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it just
that's
so it's just it's just I'd rather be overly prepared than
right.
not, them sitting there like, and it's just like the fun facts about them when I'm like, oh, I saw you, like for Regis Progray.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I saw you driving, X amount of miles, or your son going down the stairs. And he was like, and he just starts laughing. And that's, it makes them, because they're human. They're just not
Mm-hmm.
just a boxer. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're just like me and you, and they love talking like that. Like I'm able to have a conversation that if they don't know me, I end up talking to them like we're really good friends.
Right, and I think preparation is, I agree with you, truly the key for everything, because you have to know what you are talking about, and
Mhm.
I know for a fact that boxers can spot if you're bullshitting very quickly,
Mhm.
and if you're just trying to ask the question and get the answer, and they do
Yeah.
not respect that. But they respect if a reporter or journalist, they know what they're talking about, and they understand the context and the background, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, I
It's true.
definitely
And,
agree with you.
and it's weird because even though like I've interviewed Gennady several times, or even Vasily or Canelo, I will always go back and write almost the same exact things, and just like, I'll look at their wiki, even though it's not accurate, but I'll
Hmm.
look at their box rec. I will look at all the articles. I mean, I could easily just go back to an old notebook. I keep all of my old notebooks and just use
Hmm.
that. But for me, the more I write everything out, I remember it. So
Hmm.
people are like, why? And I don't do notes on my phone, because everyone uses a phone. I go, for me, because if my phone gets stolen or my
Right.
phone dies, I have it on my pad, my
Have to have
notebook.
something reliable,
Yeah.
100%.
And so, especially when they say something, I quickly just write it in my notes. And, and I'll hold my notebook right in front of them. I'm like, well, you said this.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and they're like, oh yeah. So that's always been me. I mean, that's how I've always been learning all my stuff.
Also makes for great optics, when you're holding that notebook in your hands. It's very old school. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool to observe.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
One thing that you're started doing in the last couple of years is Hollywood Fight Nights. And
Hmm.
how do you call? Because the ring announcer is not the right way to say it, but like you're always there. You're presenting the fighters. You do the post-fight interviews. How do you call that in terms of like the?
I'm a host,
Host.
so
Okay.
I'm a host, and so I'll open the show with not open the show. Doug and Kevin would open the show, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm the host, and I would introduce Tom Loeffler, and I would set the scene of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, what's to come, and then I would do interviews either in between fights or during fights
Mm-hmm.
of say like Michael Buffer or Bruce Buffer of like what are you seeing right now, or even boxers
Mm-hmm.
just depending. Like sometimes I don't like to interview with them during a fight because I want them to focus.
Right.
So in the way I would do it, I'm like, okay, what do you see right now of whatever fighter, did you think this kind of a fight would end up turning out into a
Mm-hmm.
slugfest?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So I have to read them, and I'll tell my producers or the man, the stage manager or
Mm-hmm.
the camera guys. I'm like, no, I'm not,
Right.
because
Right.
this is such a good fight that I'm going to take away from the atmosphere of it all by me
Right. So
standing there
you
like
have
that,
to, right. You have to feel it. You have to feel
Yeah,
the crowd
yeah.
first and see if you can approach anyone. Yeah, I actually forgot about that. It's not only in the ring. You have to make sure to work outside the ring, and it's a very fast pace because you need to be on one end. If there's like a celebrity,
Hmm.
you want to interview them. It's just like
Yeah.
you have to think really quickly. How did that
Well,
come about?
so that well, we started doing it like that, and then
Uh-huh.
I would have to go interview them in the ring, the post fight. Problem is that I can't watch the fight while I'm doing something, so I can't really.
Right.
So I made them say, I'm sitting with Doug and Kevin,
Uh-huh.
do blow by blow and color commentary,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would also do some color commentary because, it's just kind of like what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and especially I did so much research on them because I do fighter interviews with the
Mm-hmm.
fighters before the fights. So when they're getting
Right.
prepared,
Right. At the weigh-in as well.
yeah, the way like whichever, and so it's and I have to do like what 12, 15. How many guys are on that card?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot for
Yeah.
one person, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, and luckily some of them I already know them, but it's kind of like I want to hear what they have to say, and that I always say, well, your last fight, blah 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 blah, this happened,
Mm-hmm.
or this is your fourth time on Hollywood Fight Night, so things like that. But now since I made them give me a chair on the thing, so I can also comment and follow the fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see what the hell's going on because I can't go in there blind. I can't say, so that was a really nice knockout. Like I'd like to
Uh-huh.
be much more like, oh, you threw that uppercut, follow, you were working behind the jab, you know, he looked faded. What, just I want to be very, very distinct of what I see and
Right.
what I can ask.
That's amazing. Right now, currently in the boxing world, a lot of talk is about lack of content because there's no fights, and different network, ESPN, DAZN, and Fox, and all of those, they are getting criticized for not putting out that content for people to be engaged in boxing, even though there's no boxing. And during this time, you actually decided to provide that content to the people, and you started your podcast.
Hmm.
I'd like to talk about that and how did that come about? Were you planning to do a podcast for a long time, and what's the name of it, and what is it about?
Yes, I've always wanted to do a podcast because I've always wanted to do radio. And, people always say, your voice, you have a radio voice also. I'm like, cool, thanks. And it just kind of happened that when quarantine hit and I knew that, oh, this is, it wasn't even lockdown yet. It was like maybe through, God, when did this all happen? Like maybe 3 weeks ago that
Hmm.
from the beginning of the thought, I'm like, okay, maybe I should just start my podcast because
Uh-huh.
I can't interview people. Zoom wasn't in yet. Like no one really knew Zoom yet.
Right.
And it's really hard to ask a fighter. I don't want to keep asking fighters, so what are you doing during quarantine? It's just the
Yeah.
same repetitious questions. And I don't really want to ask, so do you know anyone that's sick? If it's too personal because there's too many
Hmm.
people dying from it.
Hmm.
I wanted to keep it fun, lighthearted, but also very informative. And the one for Bob Arum, I've had this interview thought of 2 years ago. Like Bernie
Oh,
Barmasol. So the story with this Bernie Barmasol, and
it's funny. I just learned how Bernie's last name is pronounced. It's always I just read it, but I
how
never
did you
said it
say it? How is it said?
in my well. I don't know. I trust you that
Barmasol?
that's the way.
I'm hoping it is. Yeah, that's what I've always said it, but
Yeah. So
unless it's wrong, sorry, Bernie, I apologize. No, but we were having dinner one night, me, Bernie, and Ron. Ron was Muhammad Ali's former lawyer. You've seen him. You've met him. I
Oh
think he
yeah.
was,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
him.
So
I didn't
we
know that
ended,
he was his lawyer though. Wow.
yeah, I think it was, and I think it was formerly Gennadi's. I can't remember, but um, we went to dinner one night because it was there was no food after, and I'm like, I'm starving, like starving.
Mhm.
And so we ended up going to dinner across the street, and we were just chatting, and then just asking about what's going on. And then I
Mhm.
said, they're like, so Sin, what do you want to do next? I'm like, I really want this interview with Bob.
Uh-huh.
And I go, I just want something different. And they were saying things like, oh, he was a lawyer. I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, he worked for Kennedy's. I'm like, what?
Mhm. Mm.
And they're like, oh, he's like, I go, I knew he was very political. I didn't know to the extent.
Mhm.
And then and I'm like, and then I go, I wonder how he met Ali. Like, those were the things that were happening.
Mhm.
And then it was like, how did a deal get made? There were
Mhm.
no fax machines,
Mhm.
no cell phones, no emails. And so I'm like, this is like the question. I'm
Mhm.
getting the chills because I remember this so well. And I wanted to do for my channel, actually, sit down. But it was so hard to get Bob because he was constantly traveling, and
Right.
he'd either be in LA or Vegas. And I'm like, that would require me to like hire people to fly out. And I'm like, that's, the whole point, that's too costly.
Right.
So then fast forward to 3 weeks ago, quarantine time, and podcast, what's this, Jay Chandri from Break Media Productions.
Yeah.
He put something out on Twitter. I
Mhm.
didn't see what was on Twitter. And I just said, oh my God, I was thinking of doing a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, let's talk about it. And I was like, I don't know how to do a podcast. Like I barely learned how to do YouTube. I mean, I'm still learning how to do YouTube. I just ask a 12-year-old to teach me. So
Right.
they, and so when he was telling me and like I was bouncing off ideas, our ideas were just like boom, boom, boom. It, it,
Mhm.
it was, it was so quick that I mean, I couldn't believe how fast, and I wanted to keep the real fight.
The funny thing is
With,
he's also from Toronto, and we just recorded a
yeah,
podcast with him a couple of days ago, so
yeah.
he's in the books as well.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. He told me that he talked to you, so that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
so
he's
talked
so
about that as well.
creative,
Yeah.
and it was crazy that like he's like, send me your thing, and I'm thinking, like give it some time, and he's like, okay, send it, send it. I was like, oh shit, like okay. So
Mhm.
he's like, send me pictures. I go, I don't have pictures of myself. Like I always
Mhm.
have pictures with other people, so
Mhm.
I would have to ask like Lena Baker, any photographers. I go, do you have any pictures of me? Like it sounds weird because
Mhm.
I just don't take professional pictures because I'm always taking pictures of other people or me and other, stuff.
Right.
So I eventually got that, and he made this logo, and I was like, oh, yes, no. And I mean, within like 2 days, it was done.
Mhm.
And then he's like, get on Anchor, which I already was on because of Nancy.
Mhm.
So she's like, we'll learn how to do a podcast together. So we were learning when she was recording hers, we're teaching ourselves like that day.
Mhm.
And after that, we got that. He's like, write your list of your guests. So I had my list going. I have like an ongoing list who I've texted, who I've asked, their PR people. And then Bob Arum came to mind. I'm like, that's my first guest. Like,
Mhm.
please, please, please. And in the story in that podcast, I really wanted. So if you notice, the real fight is not just boxing, and I wanted to do it like that. I didn't
Mhm.
want to pigeonhole myself into just fights. I wanted to I wanted to be very broad. Like if you're struggling with cancer or you almost died, like some crazy shit that happened to
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
that's your story. Everyone has a story. And so Bob Arum, I'm like, this is the one. So I text him, and
Mhm.
I remember he's like, all right, fuck yeah, I'm just so fucking bored of this inactivity. Hurry up and get your podcast done and call me. I was like, okay. So when I told Jay, I
Did
go,
he
the
actually
first,
drop the F-bombs in your
oh
texts?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's this, yeah, yeah, oh yeah. And I mean, he's Bob. The Bob father is the Bob father. And when
Mhm.
I told him my spiel, I was like, cursing is highly encouraged. I go, it can go over an hour. It just depends. Like, and that's when it turned into an audio series. Because with
Mhm.
him, it was such a story that I wanted people, since you visually can't see it, I wanted you to visually see it in your head, since you
Mhm.
can't visually see it like this.
Right.
And so when Jay and I were talking about it, and he's like, I want to work on this with you, because he was just gonna help me like get my shit set up, but
Right.
he knew that this is a mega guest, and I'm like,
Mhm.
hell yeah, we co-produce it together. I do the
Mhm.
whole storyline. He does all the audio stuff, and
Mhm.
we just bounced off of it. And the way we even got the title, I'm not even kidding you, in like 5 minutes, It was just
I
like,
saw the screenshot of your texts, how you guys
yeah,
came up with the thing. It was pretty
yeah,
cool. It's
yeah.
very,
So
very behind the
88,
scenes.
88 for 88 years old,
Right.
and hustle because he's still hustling at this age at 88,
Crazy. Crazy to
and
think that.
88 and hustle because he's from New York, so they sound like cross streets.
Yeah.
So we're like, done, done. I'm like, wow. It was like this. It was so the adrenaline. I was like,
Hmm.
oh God. I'm like, I can't believe we just got a title. Like, I can't believe I have a podcast. I can't believe it. Just, I can't believe it.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, when Bob said, well, when do you want to interview? He wasn't answering me. I was like, shit, he hasn't responded. He hasn't responded. And Jay was like, oh shit. And he didn't have an Anchor app. He
Hmm.
didn't. I was like, so do you know this? He's like, no. Do you know Skype? No. Do you know? I was like, oh my God. So we had to go old school. And I'm thinking, okay, we figured it out.
So how did you record it?
Through I called him on my phone, and I put my phone close to my computer, to the speakers, and I interviewed it through QuickTime.
Got it.
So it was a longer step, but
Yeah.
it came out.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I figure I go, if people are, especially Wi-Fi is bad because everyone's on Wi-Fi right now.
Yes.
So my second interview had a lot of sound issues. So
Hmm.
now I was like, okay, maybe I just might have to go back to this one. But I also learned some other ways to fix it.
Yeah, check out other ways. If there's a way for, I feel like there's other things you can do.
Yeah,
Even this Zoom, for example, right now, audio is fine. Video is a little lagging because of the internet, but audio
yeah,
is so far so good.
yeah,
But yeah, no, that was great. I really enjoyed the podcast, and I enjoyed the production as well because it was something different. It was more of like
yeah.
you're listening to some sort of an audio experience where there's like so first of all, there's the theme. You're setting that you're setting up the time of
Mm-hmm.
the era, right?
Yeah.
What was going on at that time, and
Yeah.
you're narrating that as well, and you're narrating it as an if like it's a story time. You're like
Yeah.
you're diving into it. So like it
Yeah.
had the whole structure and atmosphere, like an environment of that, and then there was a soundtrack to that as well. So I guess
Yeah.
that's also you and Jay were like coming up with that. So it was really an experience. Like you can see that it's a high quality production, and I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
It was
And
good. I mean, it was a lot of work. I mean, when Bob was like, I'm like, Monday or Tuesday, when do you want to interview?
hmm
And it was like, seriously, he texted me last minute, and I was
hmm
calling his PR people. I'm like, I need to know. Like, I
hmm
don't know if I'm doing it. I had 2 days to do 5 decades. I don't think I've ever been so stressed out, and the anxiety and
So
panic
this was
attack.
recorded in two sittings.
No. So I had 2 days to prepare.
Okay.
So I know Bob Arum's life from now, like from boxing on,
Right.
meaning from since I've known him, since I've interviewed him several times,
hmm
but not about, I didn't know his current life of
hmm
how he got into boxing, why he got into boxing, how he met Ali. And I mean, he filled in, I mean, he's such a great storyteller for him to tell about the mob and
hmm
how he met Ali, how he didn't even give a shit about boxing, he didn't even like boxing, like
hmm
stuff like that. I'm like, this is incredible stuff. Like,
Exactly. I texted you before. I feel like
yeah,
this is definitely a contribution to the history, this podcast,
yeah.
because I feel like this will be used by boxing historians and just the historians of sport
Oh,
in
that would be
general.
amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So expect to be referenced in a lot of history books. That's just like I'm
Oh,
100% certain about that.
oh, I want to cry. Look at all my goosebumps. Now, it was a big passion project for me. Like I've been wanting to do this and for it to come to fruition after 2 years, not
hmm
in the way that I thought it would be, but it's better than I expected. Like with the sparkle on top. Like, and I told Jay that I go, if it wasn't for you to, just I I saw it and I'm like, oh, I'll just ask him. It never
Yeah.
hurts to ask. And
Yeah.
he was offering to help people out. I was like, fuck it, why not? And we made magic. And it's like now I just now have a podcast. And so I did my second interview. It should be dropping Monday. It's
Can
not
I
an
ask?
audio series. No,
Can, can I
no,
ask who that is?
no.
No. Breaking news, not here.
I'm very secretive. I make moves in silence.
Okay. Okay.
So when I dropped a podcast, they're like, oh, she drops, and I'm like, well, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing yet, but
Uh huh.
so, but now it was just like, I know the storyline. It's not like, a typical boxer of blah 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 blah. It's now that I'm being very selective of who I'm interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have the differences. I'll have an audio series, and then I'll have someone with a story, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll have like anyone, like Steve Kim. I'm gonna have him. I don't know if he's had any kind of fight. Who knows? It might come out. It might come out. But Steve Kim is always great to have on and talk
You
because
know,
he knows
this is
all
something.
his sports.
This is something because I was thinking about getting Steve Kim on my podcast, but I'll be honest with you, I'm a
Mhm.
little bit afraid of him.
Why?
I don't know. The dude is always on edge. I love his Steve Kim. Steve Kim is like he's highly respected within the boxing community and all my friends, and I respect him a lot. And he's a cool dude, and I think I'd
uh,
like to think that he likes me as well. But
uh-huh.
still, like I feel like if I'm gonna like put him on the show, he's just gonna, I don't know, shit all over it.
No, don't be scared. Don't be scared of him.
Because
Steve Kim
he's
is.
generally he's not nice. He's just like this badass.
Oh,
Like,
no, he is very nice. It's just that he just doesn't like people talking stupid. Like, that, and there's a lot of stupid people that just say dumb shit. But if you know your shit and you know your sports, like if you're gonna talk sports to him, you
hmm
better know your shit. Like you better know he's a big Miami fan. Like he lives and dies Miami, University of Miami. So it's he
Right.
loves sandals. I mean, the minute he can wear shorts, he's wearing those sandals. Like you just have to get. I mean, he's like my brother from another mother, but he's fun. He's good. He's just you should
Yeah,
chat it up with him. You should be like, I'm
absolutely.
really scared of you. I'm gonna
Well,
talk to him. I'm like,
I bet he does.
Steve.
He is a friend. He is a friend of the podcast. He always retweets my
That's awesome.
stuff. Well,
Yeah.
granted, I actually asked him to like, hey Steve, would you mind retweeting this please for me?
Yeah.
So I asked
No,
politely to
and
do
it's
it.
fine. And I love that. And I think, at this time right now, that's the ways that you just have to ask your fellow
hmm
colleagues. It's like, hey, they see that you're hustling. So, I ask people, can you retweet my stuff? Yeah. Can you
hmm
retweet my blog stuff? It's just,
Yeah.
why not? And I listen to that. That's how you learn. That's when you listen to their podcast, you
hmm
learn how they answer questions or what not to ask. And sometimes like different topics. So I always find watching other YouTube channels, reading other people's articles, and
hmm
listening to other podcasts. That's the only way you're going to learn.
hmm
That's your school right there.
Absolutely. Is
Yeah,
there any chance your podcast will be published on iTunes?
I thought it was. It should be. I just got approved for it.
Oh,
So
okay. Because I was looking for it a couple of days ago and I couldn't
okay,
find it.
I
It was
got
only on
approved.
Spotify and Anchor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be on. I think Google Play. I know iTunes just sent me a thing, so I don't know if I'm. Like I said, I'm so new to this, so I don't know if I'm supposed to manually do something now because I manually put it in and it
Yeah.
says you're approved. So I don't know if there's another step next.
Well, I think I mean, as long as you did the RSS connection, and I
Yeah,
feel like you did, so I feel like it's good for now. Now it's going to be automatically posted, but double check
yeah.
that,
I'll double check it. I'll
yeah,
double
because
check it.
I don't remember at
Yeah,
this point.
because I saw it. I was like, yes. Because I
Awesome.
put explicit, and then he's like, no, no, no. Explicit is like if you're doing like sexual stuff. I'm like, oh no, mine just has cursing. And he's like, no,
Uh-huh.
that's not explicit. I'm like,
Oh, you
oh,
think cursing is not E sign? I
that's
feel
what
like,
I thought it was.
yeah, because I'm gonna
But
put E on this one just in case.
yeah, just do it. Yeah, because God forbid a child is hearing me and I'm like dropping f bombs left and right.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, it's all right.
Cynthia, such a great conversation. Honestly, you're so easy to talk to.
Oh,
A-
thank you.
And by the way, I see you have a picture behind you with another great podcaster in the world of boxing, Mike
Uh
Tyson.
huh. That is Mike Tyson
Do you listen
right
to his
there.
podcast? I love his
Of
podcast, man.
course, of
Hot
course.
boxing.
Hot
Yeah.
box. I mean, I love his new water Dwink, DWII.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't see that. What is it? Is this his
yeah.
product?
Yeah, it's so you know how he has a list like you Dwink, so it's like drink, but
hmm
it's a water, and it's his product placement. I'm like genius. It's genius.
Nice.
I would love to interview him. Oh my god, I would die.
Yeah.
I would die to interview like Kevin Aioli. Kevin Aioli from Yahoo
Yeah, of
Sports.
course.
So he interviewed Thomas, Mike Tyson,
Uh-huh.
and he sent me a picture, and I was like, "You're interviewing Mike the King!" Like,
hmm
and I go, "Oh my god, I'm so excited! Like, I can't wait to see it." But it
hmm
was for written,
Mhm.
So I go, can you just tell him that I love him? I'm his number one fan. And I didn't know if he was live with him. I had no idea. He's like,
Mhm.
actually, I did tell him. I was like, oh my God. And that I had a dog named Mike Tyson. So that's a story with this one. It was back in 2012, maybe, when he was he had that book Undisputed.
Oh
It went
yeah,
on,
I read it.
it went on Broadway. So
Mhm.
it did a tour on Broadway in New York, and Spike Lee was directing it. It was the last day of the last show, and I was doing a meet and greet. I was the last one in line, and he was so agitated. And at that time, he was doing drugs again, but no, it was
Mhm.
kind of no one knew. And then he eventually came out and said, I fell off the wagon, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And he was just dripping in sweat in that shirt. And I was like, okay, maybe he's just hot from just he's
Mhm.
tired.
Mhm.
And every picture that he took before me is like just not happy. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
fuck, I'm so scared. I'm like, I'm not like, I'm so scared. But I go, his story, if I don't know if you've read the book, but if you've actually seen it,
Uh-huh.
the video, you laugh, you cry, every
Mm.
emotion comes out.
Mhm.
So I'm like, what do I say to him? Like, that was a beautiful show. Like, I'm so sorry about your daughter. Like, I don't fucking know. I'm like, I
Mhm.
love
Mhm.
you. Like,
Mhm.
and so my ex-boyfriend took a picture with him first, and he's like, dude, he's so mean. Like, he was just not happy. I'm like, great. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting there, and they had to change the camera because you couldn't use your own camera. It was a professional photographer.
Mm.
So I'm standing there like this. I was like, what do I say? Like, say something. And he's like looking at me. I'm like, I have a dog named Mike Tyson. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth. And he's like, what? I go, I have a dog named Mike Tyson, a black pug. I love you. And I go, I have a Twitter and an Instagram, Mike Tyson at Mike Tyson the dog. And he's like, no. He's like, let me see. And I was like, give me my phone. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I showed him, and he's like, really, let me see his Instagram. So I showed him, and I have never taken down my Instagram because it's my
Uh-huh.
baby.
Uh-huh.
So there's one with him, so with gloves on, like wrapped around, and just like it's just always with Tyson. And he was just like, oh. And then I showed him the Twitter. I go see, and I go, I'm too afraid to like put your at Mike Tyson when I post Mike Tyson the dog because like I don't want you to get offended. And he
Uh-huh.
just started laughing and he was smiling and good. Thank God I said something. They're like, okay, we're ready to take a picture. That's when he's smiling.
Oh my God, that's such a cool story.
Isn't it? And so I was like, I really want to tell Mike Tyson myself. Like, I don't know if you remember taking this, but
Mhm.
it was like seriously one of the best days of my life because everyone's like, I saw all their pictures. He does not look happy. And then I was like, he's
That's so
smiling.
awesome. Honestly, I'm surprised you still haven't interviewed him. I think this needs to be
I've
corrected.
been dying. Can you guys help me out, please? Anyone in the boxing world? Mike Tyson, I love you. I love you. I just want to talk to you. I mean, I'll smoke. I don't even smoke weed, but I'll smoke with you if I have to. Like I even told Bob Arum, I go, I don't do edibles. Like
Hmm.
I'll do an edible with you so we can have a conversation. I mean, I've done an interview about edibles with him, and it's incredible. He knows
Right,
his, yeah,
right.
he schooled me. So yeah,
Oh,
thank you so
wow.
much. This was fun.
Yeah, Cynthia, thanks so much for coming onto my podcast. And again, it's so easy to talk to you. Like this, we talked for an hour and a half nonstop, and it
Hmm.
felt like nothing. So I really appreciate it. And how can people reach out to you? How can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at The Real Fight Girl. You can also check out my YouTube, The Real Fight with Cynthia Conte. And you can also go to my new podcast on Anchor, iTunes, which I'm going to double check. If it's not there, it's Anchor and Spotify for sure. It's called The Real Fight. And then with Cynthia Conte, same as my YouTube. And Twitter is at Cynthia_Conte. And you can also see my other interviews for Ring Magazine, which is Ring Digital YouTube channel, all the other interviews. And then 360, all those fight nights whenever we resume.
Right on. Cynthia Conte, everyone. Cynthia, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.